Well, good morning. I'm Jeffrey Darty, your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower, and this is the Gospel Truth. And today we continue our search for parabiblical wisdom. Today, looking at the teachings of H.P. Blavatsky, otherwise known as Madame Blavatsky. And we've been going through some definitions, and even though that sounds like it might be a little bit boring, there's a lot of great information that we've been digging into in the Blavatsky material. And it's been very, very powerful and very helpful to us. And I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Of course, we're on our new schedule, 11 a.m., 5 p.m., 11 p.m., plus bonus coverage, bonus shows in between those hours. Take a look at my website, jeffreydarty.com. Check out the new services that we're offering and ready to help you in any way that we possibly can. If you're new, I welcome you. Thank you for coming on and taking a look at the show. If you're a new subscriber, thank you very much. And if you're not so new, I still thank you very much. Do make sure that you are still subscribed. People have been being dropped. And while you're here, please do subscribe, like, and share this video. Let's get right in and talk with what Madame Blavatsky had to tell us. And we've been going through these definitions, and they've been nothing short of fascinating. And this promises to be no different. I'm looking now at elemental spirits. And I've had an interest in elemental spirits, I must confess. And Blavatsky defines elemental spirits as the creatures evolved in the four kingdoms of earth, air, fire, and water, called by the Kabbalists gnomes, sylphs, salamanders, and undines, or undinis. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. They're the forces of nature and will either operate effects as the servile agents of general law or may be employed by the disembodied spirits, whether pure or impure, and by living adepts of magic and sorcery to produce desired phenomenal results. Such beings never become men. And persons who believe in the clairvoyant power but are disposed to discredit the existence of other spirits in nature than disembodied human spirits will be interested in an account of certain clairvoyant observations which appeared in the London Spiritualist, June 29, 1877. With a thunderstorm approaching, the seeress saw a bright spirit emerge from a dark cloud and pass with lightning speed across the sky, and a few minutes later, a diagonal line of dark spirits in the clouds. These are the Maruts of the Vedas. And again, we find ourselves going back to the Vedas. The well-known and respected lecturer, author, and clairvoyant, Miss Emma Hardage Britton, has published accounts of her frequent experiences with elemental spirits, which brings us to an interesting discussion. If there are elemental spirits that are involved with, like this lady said, lightning and thunderstorms, I wonder out loud if there's a possibility that elemental spirits could be involved with the hurricanes and things like that. Connie Rowan says that Madame Blavatsky was ahead of her time. Warm welcome to Joe Hickox. And I'm interested to hear what Joe has to say about Tai Chi. He's a practitioner of Tai Chi. I'm an enthusiast of Tai Chi, trying to get myself to be a practitioner. So if there's elemental spirits involved in thunderstorms and whatnot, are there elemental spirits involved in hurricanes? And you could ask yourself, with all of the damage that we're inflicting upon the environment, is it possible that these elemental spirits, if they are involved at all with the weather, might be somewhat less than pleased with what we're doing to the planet? That's a very interesting thing to ponder. Don't know if I'm ready to go out on a limb and say yes, but it is very, very interesting. And if there are elementals involved with these storms, might we want to appeal to those elementals when we try to do work with storms in the future? But if you think about it, if they're elementals, that means they're of the air, They're of the water, they're of the earth, and they're of fire. Now, fire could be interpreted to be manifestation of lightning, or lightning could be a manifestation of fire, you could think. And certainly hurricanes and storms are manifestations of air. They're, to a great degree, empowered by water. So if we do have to go to work on another storm, perhaps we consider an appeal to the elementals of the air, the elementals of the water, and ask them to, probably there would be some forgiveness. I think that we should be nice and humble. And that might be an interesting way to go at it next time. Don't know what you think about that, but I think it might be very, very powerful, because if the elementals are involved with the storms, as it sure seems that they well could be, then that's something that's certainly there for us to ponder, I would think. So, and it says that living adepts of magic and sorcery can enlist the elementals to produce phenomenal results. And we produced phenomenal results in reference to Hurricane Irma. And we did it kind of ploddingly. We didn't appeal to any of the elementals, at least I didn't. So interestingly enough, perhaps we have found another interesting way to appeal to the disembodied spirits, and not the disembodied spirits, but the elemental spirits. And these elemental spirits are not interested in becoming human. These elemental spirits do not want to become human. And this brings up another interesting point about elementals. One of the problems of working with disembodied spirits in general is that disembodied spirits in general want to become embodied again. They desire an embodiment experience. So when you're working with disembodied spirits, they will play you. It's just a degree to how much they will play you. They will play you. It's just a question of to what degree they will play you. Because again, they not only do they want to become embodied, but they want to share your energy, i.e. eat, steal, feed off your energy. And these disembodied spirits will do it every single time. Oh, but Jeff, they're nice and they're loving, and Doreen Virtue says that I should work with them. Doreen Lack of Virtue. They are disembodied spirits, and they will vampirize you, and they will use you. They may throw you a bone or two, but they'll use you. On the other hand, the elementals have no interest whatsoever in becoming embodied. The elementals have no interest whatsoever in entering into you. They have no interest whatsoever in having a body experience. So they make better allies, in my opinion, than disembodied spirits. Now, I don't work with allies very often, but when I do, I prefer to work with the elementals. I have in the past worked with the elemental spirit of garlic. Garlic, feminine spirit, powerful spirit. I appreciate her, and she affords me protection, and I afford her some good press. And it works out well for both of us. Connie Brown says that the elementals are creatures of this world, and we are really messing up their home. Forgiveness before and in conjunction with asking for their help only makes sense. I agree with that, and I appreciate your input. So we should learn to work with elementals, and I think that might be something that I need to actually ponder upon and do perhaps some teaching upon, working with elementals. Well, that'll get them upset, won't it? Working with elementals. There you go. Working with elementals. We're going to look at more into that. And elementals don't want to become embodied. So there you go. Let's go ahead and take a look again at some more of Blavatsky's work. See how great this is? We just go through these definitions and we find all these amazing things to ponder. And under the general designation of fairies and fays, these spirits of the elements do appear in the myth, fable, tradition, or poetry of all nations, both ancient and modern. How about that? It could be said that elementals have been spoken of more than even angels, more than even gods themselves, perhaps. So these elementals, and they don't have the capricious, arbitrary, malevolent nature that is sometimes displayed by the angels, because again, they don't really care about us. The angels don't like us. The angels are jealous of us because we have a higher place than they do. The angels are upset about our deep connection to deity. The elementals don't have any of that. So the elementals make very good, thank you for the support, I appreciate it. The elementals make very good spiritual partners. They make very good allies, and we should learn to work with them. I am going to start talking about that in greater detail because we could use all the help we can get as we bring down this Christian monarchy, this Christian dictatorship that we've been under for 2,000 years. They go by many names: Peris, Devs, Jinns, Sylvans, Satyrs, Fauns, Elves, Dwarfs, Trolls, Norns, Nisses, Kobolds, Brownies, Necks, Stromkarls, Undines, Nixies, Salamanders, Goblins, Punkies, Banshees, Kelpies, Pixies, Moss People, Good Neighbors, Wild Women, I'm all for Wild Women, Men of Peace, White Ladies, and many, many more. And they have been seen, feared, blessed, banned, and invoked in every corner of the globe, in every age. And I did say the G word. Shall we conclude that all who have ever dealt with these elemental spirits have hallucinated? These elementals are the principal agents of disembodied but never visible spirits at seances and producers of all the phenomena except the subjective. I'm not really sure what she means by that. But there have been elementals ever since there have been elements. And you could say that the elements pre-existed the earth. So the elementals may very well be more ancient than perhaps even the gods themselves in some cases. Or at least as, well, maybe not, because they're ancient as the earth itself and the elements. Earth, air, fire, water. Did those exist before the gods? No, probably not. Now, how about that? That's very, very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. Think about it, ponder it, consider it. Working with elementals. Now we turn our attention from working with elementals. We turn our attention from elementals to elementary spirits. Now, elementals are not disembodied spirits. Elementals are spirits of the elements, earth, air, fire, water. Where elementary spirits are the disembodied souls of what Blavatsky calls the depraved, i.e. these souls having at some time prior to death separated from themselves, their divine spirits, and lost their chance for immortality. Now that's interesting. So Blavatsky is calling elementary spirits unbalanced spirits, or what we might want to term demons or bad spirits. So Blavatsky says there's this class of elementary spirits which are disembodied souls of the depraved, or those that for some reason or in some way separated themselves from their divine spirit. So Blavatsky is saying there are disembodied, depraved, essential human spirits. Not those that have the spark of not the spark of divinity that will sometimes be disembodied. I'm sure we'll get to that. But there are depraved human spirits. This explains a lot of things. This goes a long way towards explaining what we think are demons when they're really not demons at all, but they are depraved spirits. Some Kabbalists make distinction between elementary spirits who have been men and those beings which people the elements and the blind forces of nature. So she's saying some people mix up elementals and elementary spirits, but once divorced from their bodies, these souls, also called astral bodies, of purely materialistic persons are irresistibly attracted to the earth, where they live a temporary and finite life amid elements congenial to their gross natures. This is fascinating. From having never during their natural lives cultivated their spirituality, but subordinated it to the material and the gross, they are now unfit for the lofty career of the pure disembodied being for whom the atmosphere of the earth is stifling and mephitic, and whose attractions are all away from it. After a more or less prolonged period of time, these material souls will begin to disintegrate and finally, like a column of mist, be dissolved atom by atom into the surrounding elements. This is fascinating. If you've been with me for a long time, you remember me talking with Dr. Andy Toltek, and you remember us talking about when you go through the astral realm, when you're leaving this realm and going to where you're going to go to, that he used to say that the cuttings of the vegetables or the cuttings of the fat and the bone fall off of our spirit. The parts that aren't worthy of ascension fall off, and the astral realm is made up to a great degree of these cuttings, of these scraps. And many of you are listening to and taking advice from these scraps, and these are really they're exactly what Blavatsky calls them. They're depraved spirits. They're the unredeemable parts of human spirits that have passed through to another realm and have left this. It's the trash. It's the garbage. You take a carrot and you cut the greens off and you throw those down the garbage disposal. Think about that. Whatever, when you're preparing your food, goes in the garbage disposal or in the trash, that's exactly what these depraved elementary spirits are. And how many of you, led by people like Doreen Lack of Virtue and people like L.A.Z.Y. Marzulli with his whole Watchers nonsense, are dealing with talking to, taking advice from creatures that are depraved and creatures that are nothing but base, unredeemable portions of spirits that have moved on? Very interesting. If the soul does not progress, they become disembodied, and it becomes, so you're listening to trash, a lot of you. Sorry if that bugs you, because the last thing I'd want to do is bug you. You know how I am. Very interesting. So a lot of these astral entities that you're dealing with are nothing more than the garbage, pieces of garbage of the astral realm that are disintegrating. And the only thing that keeps them from disintegrating at a natural rate is your interaction with them, which allows them to gain some more energy to stay alive after they should have been already dead. Now that is some interesting stuff. I would certainly consider working with elementals. I would never work with an elementary spirit. They're supposed to be temporary. They're supposed to be finite. Let them die. Let them waste away. And what they really do, I think, is fertilize the astral realm. Let them go. Let them be. Be smart enough to know who and what you're dealing with. And for most of you, the answer is don't deal with anything in the astral realm. Don't even go there. You're not ready. And if you find yourself there, get out of there as soon as you can. Where are we at as far as time? Where are we as far as time? Very interesting. Who do you call trash? Are you listening, Red Rose Rocker? The trash are the pieces of spirits that have passed through, that have dropped off, the cuttings from the vegetables that are still swirling around in the astral realm, that haven't died yet. And some of you chuckleheads are having intercourse, some of you literally, but having a discourse with in the astral realm. And you shouldn't be, because they're dying, let them die. Yeah, Blavatsky did study Vedic reincarnation. Blavatsky was into reincarnation. I don't really get it, because why do we have to come back here to a progressive? We're spiritual beings, but there you go. Very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We'll talk a little bit more here about another subject. We'll go into the Essenes. And the Essenes, a lot of you have heard about the Essenes. A lot of you know something about the Essenes. It's a real change in direction, but we'll go ahead and talk about them anyway. The Essenes, or healers, were a sect of Jews said to have lived near the Dead Sea for thousands of ages. Some of us suppose them to be extreme Pharisees, and others, which may be the true theory, the descendants of the Benim Nabim of the Bible. The Kenites, or the Nazarites, they had many Buddhistic-like ideals and practices. And it's noteworthy that some of the priests of the Great Mother at Ephesus were also so denominated. They had some carryover. Eusebius said after him that De Quincey declared to be the same as the early Christians, which is more than probable. So the Essenes were probably an offshoot of the original Christ movement. The term brother used in the early church was an Essenian term. They were a fraternity, or a koinobion, or community, like the early Christian converts. And only the Sadducees, or the Zadokites, the priest caste and their partisans, persecuted the Christians. The Pharisees were generally scholastic and mild, and often sided with the Christians. James the Just was a Pharisee until his death, but Paul was esteemed a schismatic, and he was, because he did create schisms, or divisions. Now, the big difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees was the Pharisees believed in the afterlife, and the Sadducees did not. The Sadducees thought that this life was all there was. That's why they were so sad, you see. Now, see, you'll never forget that again. So the Sadducees, or the Zadokites, they were very much into persecuting the Christians, because, of course, those that were followers of the Christ believed in the afterlife, believed in progression of the human soul and spirit. And the Sadducees were very, very much against that. Whereas the Pharisees, they could deal with that. So the Pharisees tended to not be as militaristic against the Christians, or the followers of the Christ. They didn't like them. But you got people like the one that Christ was talking to about being born again. I forget his name now, but you know who I'm talking about there in John chapter 3. And most say that Paul was a Pharisee, but it's probably more likely that Paul had started out as a I don't know, Pharisee, Sadducee, but he was a schismatic. He did create schisms, and he was, of course, very, very violent. So understanding that gives you a better perspective when you start to look at the New Testament and understanding what was going on. Sadducees were against anything spiritual after this life. Pharisees were more for it. And that's why the Sadducees were really hell on the Christians. So very, very interesting. I don't know that James the Just was a Pharisee till his death. In fact, I would challenge that. That's the first thing I probably challenge from Blavatsky. I don't think that holds textual water, and I don't think it can be proven. In fact, James the Just went to battle with the Pharisees often, and he was killed by Paul, who was likely a Pharisee. So there you go. Very, very interesting stuff. Very, very powerful stuff. But I think the main thing we want to take away today is what the elementals are. The elementals are the spirits of the elements of the earth. And the elementaries are the disembodied, fragmentary clippings and cuttings of the vegetables that you need to stay away from and just let them go into their disintegration process and refertilize the astral realm, because they're garbage and you shouldn't be dealing with them. And by keeping them alive, you're not doing anyone a help. Edgar Casey said that the Essenes, that Jesus was from that group of Hebrews. You know, once again, Jesus never existed. So, I mean, Edgar Casey wasn't 100% on everything. The Christ came as a fully grown man. He really didn't have time to be a part of any type of a group. But good stuff, interestingly. Can you recommend a book to read on this? On what? On elementals and elementary spirits? Maybe I should write one. You just have to really, it's not easy sometimes. You have to do some work. You have to do some research. You have to do some study. That's why I do what I do, to bring this information to you. So great, great, great information about knowing what an elemental is. Elementals don't care about you. Elementals don't want to be you. So they make excellent allies. Elementary spirits want to do everything they can to trick you and fool you, to keep you to be around them so they can continue to eke out another day of existence. And of course, even the spirits that are human spirits that have, thank you, that have been going, that have gone through and for some reason are still there, you know, they're kind of mixed up too. So anyway, hello, Jen. Nice to see you. Always glad to have you pop in and say hello. And that's it, folks. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This has been The Gospel Truth, a search for parabiblical wisdom. This time, looking at the teachings of H.P. Blavatsky. We also look at the teachings of Manly P. Hall. And I'm going to expand that to some others, including Harry Boddington. I'm looking at his book right now, The University of Spiritualism. There's a lot of stuff out there that we have not exposed ourselves to. So here I am, Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, encouraging you to expose yourselves to new information. And it's in parabiblical wisdom, along with the teachings of the Christ, that we realize we don't have original sin. We got the spark of divinity within. That's why we should love ourselves. That's why we should love each other. That's why we should be excellent to each other. And by learning about elementals and elementary spirits, we're better equipped to make the change we want to see. And we can do that as long as we remain fearless, my friends.